Phil Phails. Today, I'm really excited to have my guest, Brad Clark. He's a longtime friend of mine. And wave at everybody, Brad.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm going to burn some Palo Santo. I don't know why I feel inspired to do that. But I like to start this section at the beginning.
Okay.
Which would be, where were you born?
Where? Yeah. How detailed do you want to know?
Your location. Like, where were you born?
Yeah.
In the back. Someone told me they were born in the passenger side of a speeding car.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't that. No, I was in a normal hospital in Arizona.
Where in Arizona?
Phoenix.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. But we lived in the desert on a ranch that often flooded. So it was, they weren't entirely sure they were going to get to the hospital, but they did.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, the desert has flash floods all the time. So it just turned out that there was a high chance that they weren't going to be able to drive through the water at certain, there's no guarantees of when the due date was. So it was like as it got closer, the stress of not being able to actually make it into the city was high. So.
Your folks talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, we didn't know if we were going to have it in a hospital.
Yeah. Because they would get rained out and stuck there for sometimes a week at a time. So
how far out into the country?
Quite a ways. That whole ranch that they lived on when I was born is under water now. The lake expanded to feed Phoenix. So
why is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" coming?
Yeah,
to me? Is that it's like a roll top with a ring in it somewhere?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So that was like desert scorpions and sidewinder snakes and all the things that you don't want to play with as a baby, but that was like childhood. It's starting.
How long were you out there in the country? How far away was it from Phoenix? Like, where was this place?
It was I think an hour hour plus away from the hospital. So not, but with impassable roads whenever nature decided. So, but then I don't remember that area. We moved before I was old enough to really remember. I just know that, the stories from my parents were that I rode on horses before I walked because my parents had to go work. So I just was on the horse being carried out into the pasture. The cattle that we raised would eat the cactus, the desert cactus. Their tongues were tough enough that they would just eat the cactus and soften the needles with their saliva.
Oh my God. And
then, just giant scorpions around the well pump and snakes and constant danger,
What were your folks doing?
Babies. Just taking care of the cows and surviving. That's just, what you do when you're on a ranch in the middle of nowhere.
What the heck?
And then we moved to another ranch, which was a little less stressful. And that was, that I remember more of. I was younger, but those are the memories I have the most of being like 2 and 3 and
second ranch.
Yeah, second ranch. Yeah.
Were your folks ranchers?
Yeah, they became managers for ranches. So we didn't ever own a ranch, but my father would manage the ranch and take care of it and improve it. And
is that a ranch hand?
Yeah, there'd be a ranch hand that would work, but my dad was like the ranch, like the foreman, like the
administrator or something.
The head rancher. Yeah,
the head rancher.
Yeah.
And so he was always a head rancher?
Yeah. It's up until, for a long time.
Is he still a head rancher?
No, he's still a cowboy.
He's still alive?
Yeah. My dad is still, he's still a cowboy, but not a rancher anymore.
He wears boots.
And a hat, yeah.
And a hat.
Yeah.
A Stetson.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you own a Stetson?
I do not.
Do you own boots?
Not anymore.
Oh man.
No.
Your dad's like
when I moved to the city, that was yeah. I always was I just described a friend of mine as ranch tough with city sensibilities. And it is the most comforting way to describe like who I became, I think, which was I wanted to be I wanted to be near cities and people, and also like growing up in the middle of nowhere, I just wanted to not be isolated, but, and as an only child. So it was like, well, I have an animal and me, and that's it. And so, you know, and eventually sometimes there'd be like other ranch hands that had kids and I'd play with them a little bit, but yeah, it was, yeah, I wanted to not be a rancher. I survived it and I enjoyed the freedom of it, but I did not want that work of 24 hours a day, waking up and having some emergency, or just, there's just something always going wrong. Ranching is like perpetually just trying to keep things alive that don't want to be.
Or when things constantly trying to kill them.
Yes. Yeah. 4 a.m. Waking up and driving to a pasture with headlights to help a cow give birth to a calf that she couldn't give birth to or was going to die, or, and then keeping the coyotes away from the calf being born, and then, whatever. It's just waiting for the school bus, and the cattle there was a storm and they broke the fence down. And so I'm waiting for the bus. I look over and there's suddenly like cows in the way. And so I have to like shoo them off the road and go tell my parents and then catch my bus to school. And it's like, 4th grade or something. So
what did mom do?
She was also like, when you both just worked, like she took care of me, but she was also the other ranch hand. So, it was work at home. Like
original
work from home, remote working.
They were in the remote.
They were in the remote and working from home. And then I just went along with them. So
is there a story behind you being an only child? Did they only want one kiddo? Or
my dad had a giant family and my mom did not. And she did not want to deal with fighting siblings. So she, I think, only wanted one kid. Yeah. So, and I get it. Having two, I didn't know I wanted any. And then having two, consciously working to make sure that they knew that they were it for each other, that they had to care for each other, and not allowing sibling animosity. And luckily who they are as people, like they love each other, but I didn't get the choice. So I was an only child and we moved a lot. So it made things really interesting.
You didn't know that you wanted any kiddos?
Well, after, years later, when I was no longer on a ranch and we weren't ranchers anymore, my parents had divorced and I was like, I don't know. This sucks. I don't think I need to do this to someone else, which turns out you don't get to control that. You never know. So I got over it enough to have 2 beautiful kids.
Yeah. Okay. I heard, backtrack here.
Yeah.
You guys moved around quite a bit.
Yeah. Back and forth between Arizona and Texas, and multiple times.
Different ranches or what?
Yeah. My dad would take over a ranch, get it running really well, kind of having to get bored, and we'd move to a new ranch that needed his ability to improve things.
How often did that happen?
Every few years. So I talk to people that are in the military, like military brats, quote unquote, that were just because they move all the time. And I was like, oh yeah. When I tell people how much I moved, they're like, oh, were you in the military? I was like, no, we were just ranchers. And they're like, yeah, that's a lot of moving.
Was it an affluent life? Even country affluent? Did your dad make a lot of money doing that?
No, they were constantly, you have to define what rich is, right? Like what's wealth.
Well, how did your dad define it?
I think both of my parents had enough we had housing provided for us. We had a freezer full of meat and oftentimes lots of gardens, so like food wasn't really a big concern and housing wasn't a big concern. And the money you did make didn't have to go towards that. So, but there's no 401k savings. There's no like matching. It's hard, brutal work. And there just wasn't a lot of extra left over.
Yeah.
So
there's no like mountain vacation home.
There's no like, I mean, it's not like you're going to suddenly like be, maybe someone does, but usually that life is labor and it's not rich. But I watched my mom sacrifice things for her to give me whatever she could
Mm-hmm.
the entire time. I mean, up until her last breath, she did everything for me that she could just to make my life better. So
Yeah.
it was a definite model that, yeah. So we moved a lot.
And what was it like moving around? I imagine you went to small schools. Like in
Yeah.
these countries, what were school like?
Yeah, like I mean, it was little county schools in Texas, rural places, just tiny little schools of like everyone in the one building. High school's upstairs, elementary school downstairs, bus rides with everybody all together. Not all the time, but some of the schools were very small. And then if they weren't small, you had to get an hour bus ride to them.
Whoa.
So you were up early waiting for the bus, and then you'd survive the bus ride, and then you'd go to school, and then you'd get back on it and survive all the way home, and then just repeat that for the year.
What do you mean survive when you
Oh,
say
it was just like,
Lord of the Flies type of survive, or
Mad Max, Lord of the Flies. Yeah. The bus drivers, basically, as long as you didn't injure the bus driver, whatever was going on behind them, they didn't do anything about or care. So
it was
seats
brutal.
on fire, people being stabbed with pencils, throwing stuff out the window, fist fights, just chaos every day, all the time.
This isn't the first interview I've had with someone spoke about bus rides in this way.
Yeah.
I interviewed John Moore, who's doing a documentary about Austin Public, and he talked about the bus rides being just absolute terror.
Yeah. And then when you're on there for an hour and there's no way, like you're down the mountain away from home, like it's not like you could just get off and walk home. It's like, no, there's no way. You have to get to the end of it and then just loop that every day.
Mm.
Some days were better. Some days people leave you alone. Some days it was worse,
Goodness.
Good luck if you fell asleep on the bus. You'd wake up and who knows what had happened.
What kind of kid were you?
Small, artsy, ranch kid.
What do you mean small? Like
just
scrawny?
tiny. Yeah. Well, here's the example that like will just kind of encapsulate like what getting to maybe 10th grade was like. The first bus ride to school in kindergarten, I was put on the bus and I was placed between two large, probably high school kids. And they went, "Oh, good. We're going to sit you between us and we're going to just crush you the entire ride and torture you because you're this kindergartner." So like that moment for the very first bus ride to school, when I had to start going to school from being a ranch kid by myself, was basically being suffocated and crushed by two giant high school bullies. And then just that's pretty much what surviving school was like until maybe 10th grade. And then I had a way to hide and protect myself, but it was still the same thing. I just had less of it.
How did you hide and protect yourself in 10th grade?
Art class, theater. Luckily the fine arts building was separate from the rest of campus. So,
I'll,
yeah, I used the arts as a sanctuary, and that's where I tried to spend as much time being creative and productive.
So the four things that I really delve into when I have these talks, one of them is feeling like an outsider.
Yeah.
Or feeling separate from the whole, or feeling excluded.
Yeah.
I normally think of that through my neurodivergence, but I think there's a ton of ways that people understand kind of the way we make sense of it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I make sense of it. Oh, I've got this social expression that's different.
Yeah.
And so it gives it a way for me to not mean that the world's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the world's not horrible. I'm different than the world. And I need to be.
And sometimes it's just horrible. I mean, they're just horrible things. Like it just is. Like it's not even intentional. It's just some things are horrible.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's rare for someone to go through a long part of their life completely isolated from that, like from awareness or having some kind of something for them that is bad. And sometimes it's a very short season of it, right? You have like one friend that is not your best friend after a while or whatever, or you have one major loss or there's something. But I just know for me personally, every time we moved, it was like a new trauma. It was
Really?
a new loss. Restarting, I would finally have a friend. We'd move. I'd start over. It was just constant loss, grief, restarting. I was constantly an outsider.
Yeah.
Even when I was going to little country schools, I was the ranch kid. And if you're the kids that are in the town, they're like, well, we don't live on a ranch. We don't, like, why are you, rural doesn't mean rancher. Rural means still country life, but with like, you still live in a town. It's not ranch life. So, I grew up around surviving every day and horses and animals, and that made sense. People were just like, why are you acting this way?
People were,
they didn't make sense. Not even cruel. I just didn't, I was not socialized. I think for a while, like not in a way that was healthy I didn't make things easier for myself because I didn't know how.
How could you?
Yeah, I couldn't, but I also
make things easy for yourself. You're
just understanding when to not dig in my heels or be stubborn, or just, I don't know. I can just think of examples where I just knew what I knew. And when people reacted poorly to it, when I was younger, I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, why are you acting that way? Like, I just couldn't comprehend that someone would be mad that I could draw. Right. Like,
yeah.
Why would that be held against me? I don't get it. But
there's this,
it's just,
I don't know, there's this toxic masculinity or this idea of country life as being men being switchblades and and denim pants and fast cars and chin and not artwork.
Yeah. But I think what's weird is that that perception is just as harmful to those areas that are. I look back on it and I think I'm glad I'm me and survived it, because a lot of the people I grew up with didn't come out of it better off. It didn't kill you makes you stronger is something that like irritates me to no end, because what didn't kill you often maims you and harms you for life. If you were lucky enough to not be killed by it and survive and come out the other side better, then great. But that's the rare case.
Yeah.
And the trauma and the scar, like, it requires work. And I've had to do the work. Like, it was like pulling glass out of my soul to get to a point where I can let some of this go. But that was for my own health. It didn't take outward form. Not really. Like, I think if you're bullied or you have these things, you have the capacity to take everything that's been done to you and apply it just like a sharp weapon or a sharp knife or a scalpel. You can go, oh, I've had a lifetime of what hurts. I can use that effectively. And I was aware of it. I was aware I was strong too, but I didn't get in fights. And I was aware that I could be harmful with my words, and I tried desperately not to be.
Yeah.
But you still fail at that too.
I think of, these Rubik's Cubes are here because I've thought about when you're born, you come out of your mom's like a 2x2 Rubik's Cube with all of them right.
Yes.
All the yellows at the yellows, and this isn't like that, but all the blues with the blues and whites.
Yeah.
And you're perfect.
And unscrambled. Yeah.
You're organized.
Yeah.
And then every time, some stranger kicks you in the face for no reason, there's just like a little turn of like, what is this world about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe you say like, is it something wrong with me?
Right.
Am I ugly? Did I say something? Or maybe your dad is overwhelmed and doesn't meet you in a way that's helpful or loving, and you get a turn.
Yeah.
And then puberty hits you, and that 2x2 turns into a 3x3.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have this more complex world, and you're met with this scramble, but now there's extra ones and they're scrambled, and then there's this whole thing.
And it feels like they start scrambled. Like
and then you get into adulthood. Maybe you have kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have, oh my God, I don't even know what to do with this guy.
Well, and often before having kids, you've already pulled the sides off and made at least one side the same color.
Well, what I was going to say to your
cheated
point, to your point earlier about what maims you, some of these people get these Rubik's cubes thrown on the ground and smashed.
Yeah.
And some of these are missing or broken.
Yeah.
Or just, they don't even have a couple of these pieces.
Right. Yeah.
We don't all come out with all the pieces. Yeah. I think I have all the pieces, and my seeking journey has been like, how do I organize this cube or this cube?
And we're the lucky ones, right? We have probably most of the pieces.
Most of the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that's when I think of my seeking journey, and I think of that skill, that sharpness, this idea that you're aware of what brutality's like and how to apply it, but choose not to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know why I was able to look at situations, and I don't know why I survived it. I just knew that part of it was an overwhelming sense of not making stuff harder for my parents, who had already given up what I felt was too much.
Yeah.
By the time I was old enough to really understand like the consequences of what was going on around me in high school, and just those choices were still my, like, the grounding rod, or the baseline. Do not make this harder for my mom. She was already struggling and doing the best she could to keep the house we had and to take care of me. And, my parents were divorced, but mostly amicably. Like it just happened like everything else, right? You just like, it'd be easier if it was just something, it would be easier to process for me, I think, if it was just hard black and white, where it was like, well, someone did something, and then it was like, well, that's clear that this is better off. But it was like, no, this was just a surprise, but they did the best they could to care for me. And so the thing I could do is do the best to care for her.
Yeah.
And it kept me out of trouble.
When did the divorce occur? How old were you?
Probably 13, 7th grade, somewhere in there.
13.
Somewhere in there, yeah. So like it was already difficult, like, but yeah, I don't know. I just handled it differently than I think a lot of people, or the people I know, had.
Mm-hmm. What was family life before the divorce? What was your relationship with your dad like?
Good, but he was a product of a lot of large family, youngest kid, so he had his own chip against the world. And
he had a chip against the world?
Yeah. I mean, like school and teaching, or just not teaching, but just school. And, he was very smart, but didn't fit well within the framework of education, and found his own way and did his own things. But my relationship to him was, I wanted to be a tiny version. So, my mom would make him a shirt, and she'd make me a tiny version of it. So I had matching buttons and pockets and patterns, and he smoked cigarettes. And so I cut straws, or had the little candy cigarettes. I never smoked a cigarette in my life, but like the idea that this was the action he did, or he had a little notebook for keeping track of cows, I wanted to be that. But I also wanted to be my own person too, like within that. And that didn't always align with the people around us.
Yeah. What's that mean?
It means having any emotions.
Expressing emotions.
Yeah. That you didn't just drink away. Yeah.
So your dad drank?
Some, yeah. But not like a lot of the people around us. And again, it's not some people definitely were alcoholics, and it was detriment to them, but just the processing of life was like, well, it's hard. What is it? There was no value in it. Like, and there, culturally still, it's like, well, men don't cry, or, there's just like this macho thing, or there's like this tough guy thing. And it's like, I don't know. I cried all the time. I still cry. And I think, and my kids have seen me cry, and in the middle of martial art tests, I've cried. Like I refuse to be afraid of that. And I've refused to be afraid of it for a long time now, because I thought, what if someone has a problem with it? That's their problem.
Yeah. Do you remember doing stuff with your dad that was like meaningful for the two of you?
Yeah.
Things that y'all did that was bonding?
All the time.
What kind of stuff?
Oh, like making a He-Man sword out of a piece of wood, going on 4-wheeler drives to check on cows, just riding on the track, like just being with him a lot of the time. And my mom too, right? Like I shared equal time. Sometimes I wanted to stay home and not be covered in mud and dirt, and she was cooking meals or working the garden. So I copied her. Like I remember also trying to make things better. My mom watering plants. Oh, I'm going to invent something to make this easier. So I would be over there cutting things apart, making like a watering device to attach to the hose and whatever it was. Like just the tinkering and the exploring ideas and wanting things to be better always. Like that was, as far as I can remember, that is a through line. And it's the same thing that happens why I teach or why I want to explore ideas. It's like, I was doing that when I was 3. Like I know I was like, it was just constantly trying to see there's got to be something better, a better way, a different way.
Iterative improvement or some way to like, just, I can impact the system in a positive way, but through tinkering.
Yeah.
Did your dad tell you he loved you?
Yes.
With those words?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
Did he,
not,
how did he, no?
Yeah. Not, I will just say, I say it more.
Yeah.
To my kids.
Is there a way he showed you that he loved you that wasn't in those words? That, like, when did you have a felt sense of love with your dad? Did you ever have that, like, oh, this is it, my dad's giving me his attention?
Yeah, a lot of times when I was little, and then through high school and after the divorce, just him wanting me to be around or wanting to do things, but circumstances are just, and also just growing into my own person, like that shifts. But I mean, there's an acceptance of the way things could be, and you could fight against it, or you could, you could wish certain things were a certain way, or you can just see where they are and enjoy that. Right. Like I'm not going to change my dad. But I can appreciate and notice when it's his best way to show me love. Right.
Well, there's this idea, I guess I'm hearing from you, that like, it wouldn't have been the way that you wanted to receive love, but he did it and you translated it into love.
Yeah. And
what was it like for him? It was just inviting you in his daily chores. Like it was bringing you,
getting to be with him when it was going to be difficult probably for him to bring me, and he doing it anyway. I mean, that for a long time, those are memories that are great, but it's not like, it's just, that was the environment we were in. But if I look at it, yes, that was loving. And it was better than probably he was shown. But, I just know that, like, I'm sure now as an older person that's got kids, like thinking about how my kids understand my parents from me understanding my grandparents and my parents' relationship, like all that stuff is like, you have a different understanding of the world as an adult with kids versus like at that time. But no, I think there was a lot of chances that, like, him choosing to lay on the ground and play, G.I. Joes or something, like, or building a basketball hoop in the middle of like a dirt patch, right? Like there was plenty of time for him to show me and spend time and give me affection. It was just that, and I was luckier than most. Just knowing my friends, I think I lucked out.
What was it like with your friends? It was just neglect, or
just
or mean treatment, like physical abuse, or emotional abuse.
Yeah. And my dad was a creative person. He could make beautiful jewelry or do leather work, or he was a creative person himself, and he would use that as a way to express himself. But so I mean, there are plenty of people that neighbors that were being abused by men that never dealt with any of the fears that they had growing up.
Yeah. Mm. Was there any emotional or physical abuse in your household?
Not really. There's, some, I wouldn't even say abuse. There was some spanking when I was little because like, that's just what everyone knew was
You were
punishment.
spanked?
Yeah.
Like hand or a belt?
Yeah, sometimes. But sometimes it was like, but it was always very clear. Like it was one or two, like it was not excessive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had it worse at school, honestly. The principals were worse than my parents ever did.
Mm. You got spanked at school?
Yeah. Wooden paddles with holes drilled in them.
Oh man, I got spanked at school too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
And
often, most of the time, it was the other person that got us in trouble, but then it was shared punishment. So,
oh my God.
yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm sure I did some things, but as the receiving of bullying, quite often I was tangled up in a situation that I should have been protected and I was just shared punishment for. So, what do you do?
Did you define yourself as a child as a good kid?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
You were making good grades? You weren't causing trouble?
Yeah, I tried not to. I mean, I tried to live from a position of don't make things harder for my parents.
For your parents.
Or my life, or just myself, but also just, I knew, like, it's stupid, but like this was a self-limiting problem. I talk about art and not being afraid of creating, but like if I had art supplies, I knew that was an expense. And so then I would put pressure on myself to make sure I did something good with it. Right.
Yeah.
So then you'd freeze and not do anything with it at all. And then that's a waste too. So, but I didn't always limit myself, but it's just that thought of like, well, this is precious. I don't want to waste it. I got this toy. I want to take care of it. Mm-hmm. I want to value these things and not, and so the same way at school, like I wasn't great at grades. Like I didn't need to be a straight A student. There was not a pressure in my family. Like I could, and that was something I made sure my kids don't feel either.
Yeah.
They need to be challenged. They need to do well, but I was a good student and I enjoyed learning until I hit a point where it was difficult due to my interactions with the teachers or just the environment that I was trying to learn in.
What kind of interactions did you have with the teachers?
Oh, just anything from a teacher teaching something that I thought was wrong and I'd challenge them and then getting punished for it. Like I would get praise for being artistic, and then that praise from the teacher would bring me negativity from students around me. I loved science. I loved robotics, inventing, art. And so the more I did that in school, the more attention it got, and then worse it was.
The bullying.
Yeah. Or just harassment and bullying and violence and whatever. And then, but I also still was adamant when I learned something. If a teacher was teaching something wrong, I was like, why are you teaching us this? Like you're misleading all these people. It was just like a sense of injustice. Like, why are you telling us this? This is not wrong. I know this is not right. You know? And so then I would challenge it and get in trouble. And then through high school too, it was like, when I was struggling with grades and I'd have a teacher that I just didn't get along with, it was just, I still like had a streak of like, I don't agree with this situation.
Yeah. You said violence. It struck me.
Yeah.
Were you beaten up in school?
I spent a lot of time finding ways to escape, outrun, and hide from people
that wanted to beat you up.
Yeah. I was small enough to hide in the tires at the playground in elementary, kindergarten, I could run to the playground and hide inside the smallest tire of the tire buried in the ground play pieces that people couldn't get to me. So I'd spend a lot of time hiding there. And then I got bigger and I couldn't fit. So then I just got faster, or I was more creative about escaping people, like trying to hurt me.
What the heck?
Yeah. So
You serious?
Yeah.
Your whole playground time was spent holed up in a
lot of
tire?
times, yeah, or running from people or hiding from people. Yeah.
And it wasn't like tag. It was like, this person's going to physically assault me.
Yeah, some kid chasing me or wanting to beat me up or whatever.
Oh my God, you're laughing about it. But that
Well,
sounds
I mean,
like a nightmare.
It was a nightmare, but then like, eventually sometimes, it wouldn't be all the time, but like I knew where I could hide or how I could get away often.
Oh my
They
God.
weren't, snakes or wild animals, but yeah.
They were better than the ranch beasts.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But then I knew the teachers weren't going to help me. And so then, that just progressed till I got better at like just knowing that I could stop, drop, and roll, like just stop and drop when someone's chasing me, and that would send them flying. And quite often that ended us both in trouble because they would be hurt and I was involved, even though I was
They
running.
would trip over you.
Yeah, they would basically just trip because I got tired of running. They were about to catch me, so I would just ball up and they'd trip over me, and then they'd be hurt, and then I'd get in trouble.
It's
And
like the beginning of your martial art journey.
Yeah.
That's like some really good martial art move.
It's fantastic until you get in trouble and they go home with a like scraped knee, and they get all the like, oh, that poor kid's hurt, and then they're like, I'm getting you later.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so like that was just continuous, and up until probably the last year of high school, I think was the only year I didn't have like someone totally after me, but I don't even remember.
Do you remember any of these people?
No. That's not true. Some of them, yeah.
I mean, I'm not asking you to name.
No. I mean, like I was trying to think like, no, there's a few people like I remember vividly.
And they're out there in the world and you know them.
Yeah. Some, yeah.
Like, you remember when you terrorized me? When
Yeah.
I was a kid?
And I quite a long time ago realized what forgiveness meant and how to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
Because it was so deeply in me. But that was also how I survived not being bitten by snakes. And, like I had a very strong predictive defensive mechanism of growing up around danger all the time. And so when that got to people, like, oh, that rock has a snake under it, and I now know that forever. Like, do not go. And so, the things that kept me safe were also keeping me trapped. And dealing with how to balance those things and not, well, yeah.
Keeping you trapped. Does that mean like you didn't look under rocks? And
No,
some rocks
it
would have
just
cool stuff
it
on
just meant that like, even if the snake was gone and I knew that there was nothing under there, like
Scared of rocks.
it would still carry with me, right? Yeah. Or you build a distrust because you know that that's a possible danger.
Yeah.
And so then that carries over to people. And then you have those memories that are like self-reinforcing. They've forgotten 10 years later. They don't remember what they were doing.
Yeah.
They didn't know they were being terrible monsters to me in my mind. And I've kept them as terrible monsters the whole time. I'm like, I'm tired of carrying this stuff around.
Yeah.
Removing the shrapnel.
And you didn't tell your mom or dad about all this stuff.
I did sometimes, but it was like, well, that added burden. Or what were they going to do? Quite often it was like, they can't do anything.
Yes, they're not going to come to school with you. And
No, yeah. And what were they going to do? They were going to make it worse. And then they're not going to be there, like turning
like
teeth.
talking to the
like on the
parents or
bus
something.
ride, like people would find me when there was no one else around. And so you're just like, okay, I guess this is when I'm going to hold the back seats of the bus and kick you across or like it just delayed. Right. So I just got better at hiding and escaping.
Oh my God.
Which meant I didn't get in a whole lot of fights. I was, quite often narrowly missing them.
Yeah. How do you incorporate that into who you are today? Like, do you have any stories about how that changed you or how that made you the man you are today?
Well, for the negative, yeah. It just made any negativity self magnify 10,000 times, because it was like, oh, this is what I would have been bullied about that, or this is still a trigger, a memory, or a sore point. So I'm going to Like that is what comes forward instead of seeing the thing or meeting where it is or listening to the fear and doing it anyway. Like that was, I still pushed through it, but it was every time like just struggling in quicksand instead of just living. And it came out, I said the Rubik's Cube is interesting. I said, then some people start off as parents with the pieces popped off and you think that it's solved.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I read a lot of parenting books and not once did they say, oh, you're having a kid. You better look at yourself in the mirror and get your shit together. Not one. They're like, worry about diapers and baby proofing, but not one book that I find parenting advice saying, do you have your house in order for yourself?
Yeah.
Because they will find every trigger. They will re-expose every self-doubt and worry and memory through the ages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no, the thing is, do you know that you're about to have to reparent yourself from the ground up in a positive way just so that you can parent them in a positive way?
If you are a aware parent. If you're not aware, you just pass the damage on and you think that everything's fine.
You just keep spinning that Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. But my kids didn't allow that. They made sure it was very clear that they needed me to do the work and they weren't going to respond to anything but.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's who it made them, the question, how did it impact me and who I am? It made me overly concerned with other people to the point where it took away from me until I did the work to find a balance where I could show empathy, where I could show love, where I could be there for people and not carry all of it dragging behind me.
Mm.
The worry I'm not good enough was the constant thread. The fear of I will be exposed and it will be a target and I will be picked on or seen less than, or I'll lose a job or whatever it is, or I will fail, whatever it was, that was the continuous noise.
Yeah. The through line.
Yeah. And so it limits all kinds of things.
Yeah.
It also fuels me to really, really want to understand and know things because the fear of being exposed, but it also is completely damaging. I lucked out that was the result.
Yeah.
That it made me want to prove myself. So I did more work instead of tear people down or try to,
become a part of the system.
I lucked out. And then when I had to do the self work and dig through it all and remove remove all the shards of glass that I had covered over and not dealt with, but I thought they were. I'm like, oh, no, that's all in there. Let's finally get it out. Yeah. And then I couldn't trust it. So then you have to continue to rebuild the trust in yourself that you did the work. That I'm not good enough applies to your self-work too. And you have to put that aside.
Yeah. Oh,
and so every day, then, you just keep progressing. But that's the way it affected me. The lucking out is that it made me continue to be curious because I was more afraid of being exposed to become a target for not knowing something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Well, back to your mom and dad. What was your relationship with your mom like? Did you have a good relationship with your mom?
Yeah.
How did she support you growing up? Or did she?
All the way. Yeah. Oh, she was, I was where she was. I was on her horse if she had to work. If I was, in the garden when she was gardening, if I was wanting to go, she'd read Lord of the Rings or Narnia to me every morning before the bus when we had time, or for bedtime stories. And then when I wanted to be a dwarf and mine for rocks, she'd walk with me with my little pick and sit for hours in dirt, watching me dig holes, knowing full well that I was never going to build the mines of Moria, but she'd sit and read while I tried.
Yeah.
Every day for months, or like it's snowing out. It's the middle of winter and I've built this little floating thing. I want to see if it floats. It's going to be a boat and it's freezing. It's 30 degrees wind chill and the water's about to freeze over, but okay, let's take you out here and watch you sit on this thing and sink into the water and be frozen, but we'll warm me up in a minute. You know, it was draggy. Like, yeah, I told my friend this recently. I was watching some cartoon somewhere. I can't even remember what it was, but like I'd wanted to build like a plane or something. So I took a red wagon and I started like attaching wood to build wings. And I'm like, I'm building a plane. I'm like, this is going to work. It just needs to go fast enough, you know, because I'm sure it was like, yes. So Mom, you need to get on the 4-wheeler and pull me as fast as you can, like drive as fast as you can, pulling me behind. And she's like, this is a bad idea, but we did it anyway. You know, she wouldn't go as fast as I wanted to. And I'm like, no, now we need a ramp. And so, you know, it just continued to escalate, but she'd go along with it for quite a while. So yeah, she was highly supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a sense from your dad that you would kind of go along with what he was doing and your mom would go along with what you were doing.
Yeah. Quite often. Yeah.
And that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
To have someone kind of support the fanciful, imaginative, wild.
Yes. Yeah.
Like adventures of a child.
Yeah. Desperately out of duct tape and cardboard Saturday morning to like make something from the He-Man show or, you know, or whatever it was, like Inspector Gadget, whatever it was, like, you know, off to the hardware store, whatever. Like she would give up whatever she could so that I had what I wanted or needed.
What's her name?
Marvell.
Yeah. And when did she pass away?
A few years ago.
Yeah. So you had her in your life for a majority of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. What was your relationship like throughout your life? Was it that same way?
Yeah. Unlimited support.
Yeah. And with your kids?
Yeah. Proud of me as a parent, proud of them. Incredible with them. And refused to be a burden till the end.
Refused to be a burden.
She didn't ever want me to have to deal with. She wanted me to have a life that didn't have extra burden. And it's funny because that's how I felt about her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wonder if she passed that down to you.
Yeah, she did. And when she passed away, I told my daughter, I said, the lesson we're going to learn from this is
will it be a burden on each other?
It's okay to ask for help, but not need it. Like, it's okay to need help and ask for it. It's okay to need help and want to do it yourself. And it's okay to just accept the help when it's given, even if you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you reframe, like just take away burden?
Yeah.
And how do we say it's a gift to have someone else be along with you,
which was
to include someone else into your tribulation or your,
that was the only thing I had to, like the only thing when my mom passed to do was to just sit with the fact that like I couldn't do anything. She took care of everything else. So all I could do is sit with the emotions of losing her and know that I couldn't have changed or done anything different because she didn't allow it. She didn't allow the joy of caring for her. She didn't allow me to go through she didn't allow anybody around her to know what was going on. And so she, in controlling it her way, she took away that opportunity for someone to help her anyway. Let that person decide if it's a burden or not. And so I think that's
how she loved you.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
so
loved
I couldn't
you
be mad at her about it.
That's how she loved you. And
yeah.
And you wanted to be a part of the fragility and the vulnerability and the transparency and the honesty of her experience, so she wasn't walking alone,
right? But
hiding.
But that was what she was trying to gift for me, and I can't fault her for that. I had to just in that gift, I just had to process it and move. Like, all I have to do is worry about how I feel.
Yeah.
And be there for her friends. And, but it was also one more shock, one more move, the divorce just happened. Like, it was just one more event in my life where I was like, well, I'm powerless over this. This is out of my control. It's just happened. And I have to accept what is.
Yeah.
Which has been incredibly valuable and devastating and somehow comforting at the same time. Like, just what an amazing lesson in how to be accepting of the things that you can't control.
The serenity prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah. And so my takeaway from it was that I'm going to appreciate it, but not pass all of it down. And that's why I said to my kids, I'm like, look, she didn't let us decide.
But that's toughie. Hey, I've got cancer. I'm going to decide whether or not you know about that.
Yes, because then you change how you interact, and it changes your...
Yeah, she won't...
But
yeah,
it has consequences. So, it's sharing what's appropriate or sharing...
I know that's the way I want.
Yeah.
I want transparency. I want to walk the life of the people I'm around with full transparency, open eyes.
Yeah.
If they're sick, tell me.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't, that doesn't mean I've got to.
Right.
If they lose their arm, that doesn't mean I have to go chop my arm off too.
Yeah.
But I could hold the
scary.
cup.
Yeah. Because you don't want to. You feel like it's your burden to carry, right? She felt like if she. And I get it, because I see the information changes people's reaction to you, right? When you and I are talking and I withhold something that could be a burden or heavy or complicated, then you're not aware of it, so you don't treat me differently. You treat me as we're treating each other now.
Yeah.
Adding information is going to change it, and I can't control that. So it's a fear. What if you find out something and now we have a different interaction?
Some idea of controlling the transactions, controlling how people respond or how they treat you.
Yeah. Because of perception and allowing that to happen. But I could share it with you and also still it's still up to me to receive it and deal with it and to talk to you about it, right? The mature thing to do would be saying, hey, I've got cancer. This is how I want to live. This is what we're doing. I can't say don't worry about me, but you will worry about me. But here's what you're going to worry about. Yeah. Worry about the things I want to worry about with you. Right? Like, I want to go see people. Yeah, I want no, but like, I can receive it, right? Like, you can be worried and I'm like, I can't make you worry less, but I can say, let's go spend time at the movies and not like, I can invite you to be the way I want us to continue.
Yeah. To continue living.
Yes. Yeah.
And not live a life of, the death is happening.
Right.
But no, let's keep making memories. Right. Let's keep living. Let's keep investing in each other. But
you have to go through that interaction, and it could be exhausting, or it could be, who knows, right? Some people are going to change. They just are. It's going to be a different interaction. And I get wanting to protect people from having to deal with that. especially if you feel like someone's going to want to help and they're not in a place to help.
Yeah.
Right? Or you don't want someone's life to change because of you, because you're having something negative that you can't control or that you don't want to control. And so I think, again, like, I don't like it. I don't like that it happened the way it did. I understand it. I understand to the best I can the reasons and why she was the way she was, but it still sucked. It's still,
Yeah.
but I have to decide, okay, well, how does that work? And then now, I'm going through the same kind of thing. Not necessarily sickness, but with divorce and a relationship ending. That's, how do you interact with people that don't know? How do you interact with shared friends? Like, there's a lot of crossover in this process of also just dealing with people's own responses to what they think divorce is, or ending a relationship looks like. I don't want that input.
Yeah.
We're doing it the way we're doing it, and it's going to be the way we think best. And everyone else's response, including my dad or anybody else, they have their own concept of what that looks like or their own experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going to they're going to have a reaction. But my responsibility is to not try to stop them from having the reaction, but it's to not accept their reaction as the way I should be feeling.
Right. This is a perfect segue into the third thing. The first thing we talked about was this feeling of being another, or an outsider, or excluded, or in some way separate. And the second thing is like parenting and family, which we've delved pretty deep in there, and we will continue to, because it's mapped over.
Hard to
everything.
Get out of it. Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Primary condition occurs in the home, right? And I'm still in a home.
Yeah.
I'm just primarily conditioning someone else.
Right.
And it reminds me of this story, or this poem, or this saying that children are watching their parents grow up too.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to think.
Or self domestication, right? Like, it's a.
And the third thing is kind of where we've stumbled into now, this idea of definition, redefinition, transformation, starting over.
Yeah.
And so it seems like you're in a place now of redefining who you are and what your life looks like.
Yeah. And I'm not afraid of it because I've been there before.
When you look back on your life, what have been the definitions of Brad? Can you think of like a handful of them? Or
I hid things and limited the audience of who I was for survival, for trying to fit in, or for just trying to not bring attention.
So was it sneaky? That's not a good word.
No,
but the word, it was,
like
you were secretive, or you were
reserved and
quiet.
Yeah. And shy, and not, it just, my self-confidence and worry and feeling like whatever I did was going to make me a target just ruined a lot of chances for living.
That was like a first definition.
Yeah.
And then what was your next definition? Seems like you went into theater and into computer science and some of these areas.
Artist was where I tried to hide.
Artist was your next definition.
Yeah.
But it was still a hiding.
That was always it was the thing that I continued to do, but I felt like I could define myself as it and hide in it.
Say more about that.
Because it is a way, it's a shield. You don't have to tell people why you are a certain way. I'm an artist. So that creates a expectation and a barrier, and you can control it. Oh, I'm a painter. I'm a thing. It's a definition. It's a concept. It's people are afraid of it and they're not good at it. It's a weapon. It's a way to express things and hide within those things that you don't want to share out loud. You can you can hide in the dark in the theater and just run the lights, and you can be behind the scenes and not on stage. Even though my personality was one that would have been on stage, but I hid that away because it was safer. And then I was that until I had a kid. Until I was artist and hiding within that shell of what I did was who I was. And that was good enough. That the work was so much of what I put energy into that was who I was.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else. We weren't religious. I wasn't spiritual. It was just, this is what I am.
Artist.
Yeah.
And then what was your new definition when you had kids?
And teacher too, but like, it was not like, I could teach, but I was trying to maintain this thing. Yeah. And then when you have a kid, because and how I met you, when we decided to break societal norm and be a stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
Instead of the wife at home and the man as the bread keeper, and you go and there's a large part of the world that thinks that is against God and sin to be a man at home to raise your kids. And at the same time, you are misunderstood in public, or you think, oh, look at, you're praised for basically just doing nothing. Like, oh, you're at the grocery store. Oh, look, dad's helping mom, like whatever. There's a societal concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so like suddenly I was no longer my work. I was hiding in the job of parent. But I was not able to do that easily because I was picking the job as parent in a situation that was not normal. So you can't hide when you're the only one at the park where all the kids are playing with you because you're the only dad there, and all the moms are like, why are my kids playing with this guy at the park?
Yeah, the moms are always a little bit.
It depends on what part of the city.
Dad, yeah.
Or you're at the park with a bunch of nannies, and they don't care because it's their job.
Yeah,
they're like, whatever, man, I don't care. Depends on where you were and what their relationship was. But so then suddenly it's not you can't hide. Like you're out on the stage, but you're also, that you're responsible and there's extra pressure. And so, and also I just wanted to, it was a better fit. So I'm like, okay, again, like, I don't care what the world says. This is what we're doing. This is our family choice. And this is the best one for us. And I'll figure it out. But becoming it was just my shift in focus was to be a great parent. And so then there's this extra pressure on top of already not fitting in. Like, now I've picked a thing where you can't hide because you're like at a park with a baby and trying to change the diaper and it's screaming. Like, there's just a tension and noise and chaos. And you're like, well, here I am. This is it.
Yeah.
And then by the second kid, you're like, oh, this is easy. I got this. Like, I felt comfortable in my title as parent that I could hide. But that first year was incredibly hard because I was removing the identity of artist. And then I was no longer. What do you do? Oh, I'm a parent. But what was I still doing? I was still helping people and doing all this other stuff. And so I didn't want to get into it. So I just like, well, here's the new label. Switch hats. Dad. Yeah. Stay at home dad, parent, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. New label, new role, new responsibilities. This is the thing I'm going to be best at. And this is what I'm going to put my energy into. And you just continue to lose yourself, or you never found yourself, or you never allowed yourself to be who you were because you were hiding under one label and you switched it.
Yeah.
And then your kids come out and shine light in all the dark places and go, hey, you did not finish fixing this. You hid from all of this. You are still in there and you didn't deal with it. Good luck.
They invite you into your work.
Yeah.
Your men's work.
Yeah.
Or for your human's work.
Survival of self.
Yeah.
Finding self. And now 19 years on with losing a parent who you knew was always had your back no matter what, there was a gap of love, like a loss of stability, of anchoring.
Yeah, losing your mom.
Yeah. And then realizing your kids are growing and they need to be allowed to grow.
Self-differentiation.
Yeah. And also going, well, who are you now?
Yeah. New definition.
Am I still teaching? But like the things I do, I had to be more and more comfortable with knowing that that's not who I was, but I didn't know who I was either. I knew I wasn't the things I did, but I didn't know who I was. Not clearly, not in a way that felt secure. I don't know if I have that answer now either, but I know that I feel one more loss, one more massive change in my relationship and my life, and relearning how to parent kids who are becoming independent and needing to be able to grow safely, and having given them a stable life that I didn't, and seeing them handle and understand coming into their own and knowing who they are, but also seeing how, and it's still to be determined, but just seeing their understanding of our relationship separate from wife and husband,
You and your
yeah,
your ex.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's been incredible, but terrifying too, because it's like, okay, I'm most afraid of this thing, and now it's happened.
Yeah.
Now what? Well, I can shut down and close off, but I don't want to go back into gray. I don't want to lose. I'd rather feel horrible,
Be angry,
nothing.
be sad.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel nothing.
Yeah.
And I was tired of grieving, and I finally let that go.
Grieving.
Yeah. Like I was tired of holding all of this stuff, expectation, fear, whatever, relationships, fight. Like I just let it all go.
Mm-hmm.
And you connect with people. When you finally wipe away all the stuff and you can breathe and hear and see, it's like, oh, there's all this stuff that's still there, that's been there. And you have new connections and new experiences, and you finally can start to feel like, oh, here I am. Because you have to. Like there's nothing left. Like if you truly let it go and just are alone with who you are and don't seek affirmation, or you don't need anything, you just have yourself to look at and go, yeah, who am I? Why? What's the value in figuring that out even? Like, what does it matter? And it matters because the people that love you and that you touch and connect with reach out and let you know the person you are gave me this. You impacted me. So as soon as I let all the noise go, this flood of love came back.
Yeah. This is how I've been impacted by you, your presence.
Yeah. And it was overwhelming because it was just people coming without even knowing or being asked, or just even not realizing what they were doing. I just could suddenly see and hear it and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And it was, and when they would find out what was going on or something, like, again, it was like the fear of what are they going to find out? Oh, I'm going to be embarrassed. This is like, no, I let that go. And all I got back was incredible amounts of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I did it, because I knew I didn't want to repeat what my mom did.
Yeah. So you let people in.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to just be open, and whatever happens is going to happen. But I'm going to put this stuff down and let go and just be.
Yeah.
And look and remove the icon and the societal images of what tree's supposed to look like, or whatever it is, like what marriage is supposed to look like, what family's supposed to look like, and just go, nope, this is my space. This is who I am, and what I have, my core being has been to this point valuable to other people in ways I didn't know until they told me.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me until I was ready to hear it, and I wasn't ready to hear it until I let go. And then it all came flooding in.
Yeah. For some reason, the Maya Angelou quote comes to mind, that people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like folks let you know how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that kind of gave you an awareness to your impact on the world and the people in it.
Yeah.
And how they held you.
Yeah. And it let me be there for people that needed me in ways that I could never have been before.
Mm-hmm.
And the timing of some of these things is unbelievable. Like, I look at the things that have happened in the last 6 months in my life, and some of them are like, the best novelist couldn't have written this stuff. Like, it would have been like, no one would believe this. And it was all happening anyway. I would have just been completely blind to it.
Yeah.
It would have been so noisy in here, I would have missed it, or I wouldn't have trusted it. I would have not double checked. I wouldn't have looked. I would have run away from it or shut it out or mishandled it.
Yeah.
Or just missed it completely. And I just refused. I refused to allow myself to do that, because I don't want to live anymore going forward missing those things that are just easy to see when you're not injuring yourself with thoughts and words and hurt and what if and future plans and all living in the past and, you know, nostalgia and fear in the future, or wishes and wants of things and mourning the things that aren't. It's gone in that moment. All those things just are gone. And I can hang on to those dearly because, like, that was what was supposed to be. Or I can just go, nope, it's over. That's gone. What is?
Some way of being here now.
Yeah.
Mindfulness.
But not like that. That requires effort to try to be. This is truly letting go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a practice or I thought martial arts would help fix that in me.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't. It was another way to put a label, but not, I was still closed off to the things that it was giving me.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like all of it. Just, yeah. For me, I was hanging on to things that I needed to put down and let go. And when I was forced to, and when I just felt like I couldn't do anymore, I just got it out. I let it go. And what was there when the noise went away are some of the most incredible, deeply life-saving relationships and connections that I didn't even know could exist. And that's what my life is at this moment we're talking. There are things in my life that are so unbelievably nourishing and loving and connected to who I felt like I was when I was a kid digging holes in the ground with my mom.
Yeah.
And the artist trying to create, and the teacher teaching, and the parent, and all of those labels are unimportant, but it's the who I have continued to be, like reignited full blast. Like I just feel like I feel like myself for the first time maybe ever.
There, I think it's so beautiful. And for a while now, I've had this idea of, in Buddhism, I hope I get this right.
Well, if you don't, it's a fail.
Fails, yes. On the way to enlightenment, there's this idea of no self. Not K-N-O-W self, N-O self, like an emptiness.
Yeah.
And when I hear you say letting go, I think about letting go of all the ideas of me.
Yeah.
All of them that I picked up along the way, these definitions.
Expectations.
And there's something around perpetual redefinition in a discovery of this moment now.
Yeah.
How am I now?
Yeah.
How do I meet this now? As opposed to just like that tree.
Yeah.
Do I meet now? Do I stamp now out?
Oh, tree. Yep.
Stamp it out.
Yeah.
How do I now? Oh, I learned how to now before. I just before now.
No, I'm going to relook at it and go, no, this is what it is. Yeah.
And I can take away all that, the no self, emptiness, and meet the present moment with the present me.
Yeah.
The no.
Yeah. And the harder you dig for it and search for it and try and sit, and I'm going to be mindful, the further away it escapes, the further away it goes, the further you flail and sink and push yourself out to sea.
Yeah. It's effortless efforting. Yeah. There's this idea of you can't will something into existence. And then you probably have to have a bunch of experiences to get there. The hero's journey, it happens inside, but you're exposed to the world outside and the people along the way that allow you to have that inner experience.
Yeah. Which has been the gift of the people that are in my life.
Yeah.
And that showed up unknowingly right when they needed to.
Wow. Yeah, we're getting close to landing the plane because we're a little bit over 2 hours, or well over 2 hours. And I think I'd like to go for just a little bit into the last thing, and that's like spirituality and mysticism and philosophy. Like, how do you through this whole journey, because you said you weren't very religious or spiritual, and yet this discussion is saturated with what I perceive to be spirituality.
Yeah. I continue to relook at what I was certain of, and certain people in my life have given me a chance to relook at what I understand of religion, or that I never learned in the first place, or explore the ideas of what it is safely with them. And it's incredibly beautiful. But I'm not, and still don't feel like I appreciate the good that can come from it, but it still feels like chemotherapy often, where it's just kill everything. It's to fix the one thing, kill everything.
What is it?
Religion, or like just needing something beyond yourself.
Well, is there, I guess I see spirituality as an inner wisdom, as an inner intuition, or some kind of guide within myself.
Yeah. And not necessarily spirituality, but the boxing of it, or the monetization of it.
Oh, well, yeah.
but it's just, even in that, like, I've not, I'm happy to, when it's presented, explore it, but I don't seek it out, and I don't discount the good it can do, but I also am wary of it being the catch-all.
Yeah.
And it gets even just the label for me tends to, because I know what I've hidden myself in, artist, people hide within labels
like
of
religion,
spirituality. Yeah.
They called it spiritual bypassing.
Okay. Yeah. And so it's like, I typically just don't think about it very much because I don't have a way to know.
Yeah.
And people that are so certain about whatever it is, I go, I don't know. I don't know. I can't be that way because I've spent my whole life believing that there's another answer or looking for something else.
Yeah.
And not looking for something else because I'm searching and desperately needing to fill something up or fix something. It's just because I'm like, I know in every other part of my life, there is always more information than what I have now. And even from the start of this conversation to now, I'm a different person. I've changed just having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
And so to attach my identity to something, even if it's just energy in the world, however it is you want to describe it, it just isn't something that is where my brain goes.
Right.
And, I think some people it is. And I really appreciate the people in my life, including my mom, who believed in something bigger, but didn't let it rule their life.
Mm.
They were accepting that there is something greater. And I don't know either way, right? So it's not like I'm going to say, well, no, I don't believe in it. It's like, I have so many other things I want to think about and I'm interested in, and also can experience without needing external validation over, or even just like a label for it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I continue to sit, because I've just known too many people and met too many. I've had too many experiences that color it in a way that I don't want to deal with the labeling of things.
Yeah.
Because it's individual reality.
Yeah.
I posted something the other day. I'm like, everything's made up, so make yours the best. Make it the best version that you want.
Yeah.
Each of my reality looking at you is different than your brain processing the world. Like every one of us is generating like a parallel universe. We're all in each other's universes.
Yeah.
I'm not in your universe and you're not in mine, because my brain is seeing and hearing and
you create me in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like just that concept is like, yeah, so there's a billion
universes.
Yes.
Oh my God. That's that map. There's a ton of maps. There's a bunch of universes.
Yeah.
And we're all creating each other.
Yeah.
When we see them.
Yeah. And it's always slightly late.
Yeah.
It's just fast as light can get here. Sound.
Your history.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yes.
As I create you.
Yeah. So like
No, you're a philosopher. For sure.
But yeah, so like that's where I sit with it, is that it's interesting, but I'm content with being aware that I don't know and I won't know, and I don't need to try to validate that.
Yeah. Well, that's as good a good a place as any to kind of start to land the plane. Yeah. I think I could have this conversation with you for another 2 hours.
Easily.
Easy.
Yeah.
And maybe if there's an opportunity, we could sit across from chairs and do this again sometime. Yeah. I'm grateful for it. Grateful for learning your story and talking about, how you teach.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. Y'all, this has been Phil Phails with Brad Clark.
I don't think you failed.
Yeah.
Try harder next time.
Can I have a hug?
Yeah, of course.
Swing this thing out this way. There we go. The best way to do it. Oh, man, I love you, dude.
Love you too. Thank you. Appreciate it.